Hello everyone, good afternoon. Here in South America it's 4:28 in the afternoon. It's a quite a wintry day, very windy, and we are having southern wind, which comes from the ocean, from the South Pole, which makes, the atmosphere a little bit chillier than usual for April. So it feels a little bit wintry. So today I'm going to talk about Paul Ansell, Emma White, and Nikki Bulley with the basis of astrology. Like, I'm going to look at Paul's natal astrology. That is going to be the primary, because I have already made a video about Nikki's astrology. You can search it and you will find it. And Emma, I'm not going to do her full astrology report, because it will take a lot of time, but I'm going to base this chat on Paul, and from there I can just branch out, because all these three characters in this play, and I'm talking from a metaphorical point of view. All these three characters are very intertwined, in my opinion. Especially, I don't know about Nikki and Emma, because we only have Emma's point of view and Paul's point of view. We don't have Nikki's point of view, okay? So what I'm going to be seeing is Paul, his main traits, what I see, and then maybe Emma and how it relates also to Nikki. So I do not know, as with Nikki, I don't know Paul's time of birth, which it can be problematic, because I don't have the ascendant sign, I do not have the rising sign, so I can't see exactly where his moon is, because the moon changes degrees much more quick. Is the quickest, to change degrees. So from what I have seen in Paul's natal chart, it could mean if he was born before noon, okay, his moon is going to be so and so. But if he was born, up until for example, if he was born at 11 p.m., then his moon will have changed signs. So with Nikki, I didn't have that problem, because she has like a midpoint moon, like the degrees, like it's a middle point between the 30 degrees. So yeah, it's not, with Nikki it's more obvious that her moon is in Libra, but with Paul, I don't know, his moon could be either Virgo or Libra, okay? So it's kind of problematic, because it's ambiguous. But what I can see is, okay, I can say, okay, if he has the Libra moon, it's blah blah blah, and if he has the Virgo moon, it's so and so and so. But I can also see, for a fact, his Venus, his Mars, Jupiter, Mercury, and all the rest. So without much further ado, let's open up Paul Ansell. And it is like a dissection, kind of. Not very precise because, you know, I don't have the time of birth, so yeah. But from a first look, I can see a similarity with Nicola, and it's that he also has a cluster of planets on the Libra side. In his case, it would be like he has this big, huge cluster of planets between Libra and Scorpio, which it's interesting because it adds a different layer of Scorpionic energy, which, you know, that is kind of like a red flag just from looking at this, because he has Mars and Venus in Scorpio, which is a problem for me. As you know, I automatically say, oh dear, he has Venus in Scorpio, which is Scorpio is the sign of Venus detriment, one of the signs of Venus detriment. The other sign of her detriment is on the sign of Aries. Remember, Nicola had her Venus in Virgo, which is in fall, which is in the worst position possible, because it's in Virgo, which is the opposite sign of Venus's sign of exaltation, which would be Pisces. So it's interesting to see that they both have Venus in a very bad sign. They both have, Venus represents the things, how we love, you know, it's also, you know, money, contracts, it's also business, like, you know, it's signing the contract. It's the other person, because Venus is a planet of relationships, okay? It's all about values, your inner values, your outer values. It's about property. It's about relationships, okay? It's about me and the other, okay? Unlike, for example, Aries, which is me, okay? Venus or Mars, for example. Mars, it's about action, me, you know, and Venus is the opposite, is the female planet, and it's the feminine side. It's about joining, it's about togetherness. It's not so much about action, but about reception. It's about delicacy, it's about diplomacy. It's how you relate to the other, you know. And when you relate to others in this matrix, I mean, if you want to have healthy relationships, your Venus must be in a sign that it's not averse to relationships, okay? For example, Venus in Libra, Venus is in her natural position, which Libra, or if Venus were in Taurus, she would be also in her natural position. Of if Venus were in Pisces, she would be in the position of exaltation, right? And then, so those three signs are in, Venus is very comfortable, and it is the best sign for relationships for Venus, okay? And then the other signs, you know, if Venus is in, I don't know, Sagittarius, it's also a very sociable sign. It is about others, but also about, you know, more about like ideas, like far thinking. It's about academics. It's about long travel. So, for example, Venus in Sagittarius, it's a Venus who likes to expand her relationships, likes to travel abroad or meet people from other places in the world, or she likes, is how she relates to others, or she looks in others for a different point of view, for people who are also very philosophical, or or for people who like to have fun, because Sagittarius is an expansive sign, because it's ruled by Jupiter. So, but when Venus it's in either her signs of detriment, which would be Scorpio and Aries, or in her sign of fall, which is Virgo. Yeah, in those three signs, Venus it's very unhappy. Okay, so why? I have already explained in Nicola's astrology why her Venus, which is, especially she's a Libra, and her sun is ruled by Venus, so it is sad, it is kind of tragic to be a Venus ruled sun and to have your planet Venus in the sign of its fall. It's like it's very anticlimactic. So for example, it's like if you if you want to become, this football player, okay? Imagine you love playing football, okay? Football as in soccer, football, footy. And you love it, but you're born, with problems of mobility, and you have to use a wheelchair. Or if you are blind or deaf and you cannot enjoy the football in its maximum expression, okay? So you will feel totally frustrated. Or for example, if you're somebody whose dream is to for example, to live in Russia, and it's your dream because you love Russian culture or whatever, but you're born in a place where you cannot travel, or in a place that is too far away from it. It's like it creates a restriction in Venus. Those were like examples which have, they're not Venus related, but it was, maybe there were poor examples, but it's what I came up with in the moment. So yeah, so it's like this big frustration, constant frustration. I imagine if you are a woman who is ruled by Venus, and her own Venus, her sun is ruled by Venus, but her Venus is very unhappy. It would be like, I imagine it would be like a constant frustration and disillusionment, like a chronic thing, because from an astrological point of view, you cannot change it, right? It's just there. It's like you have been rubber stamped since birth. So this is like from a very cold perspective, but that's the only way I can see their astrology, because I don't know them personally. There's not much information available about them, about their personalities. So I don't have their times of birth. So, it's like it can't be too personal, right? It has to be more general. And so Nikki was born with a bad Venus, which is actually her son's ruling planet. So Yeah, I mean, that will create like a impossibility to create healthy, lasting relationships. And also it has something to do with an basic inability to shine your true self, because the sun is like the trilogy: the sun, the moon, and the ascendant is your true self, okay? Especially the sun and then the moon, okay? So your sun wants to shine because it's the nature of the sun to shine, okay? So her sun is stunted, okay? She cannot shine her Libra self, her Venusian self, as she would like, you know, which is kind of like, you know, it's kind of tragic. I mean, her life was tragic, and then you see her astrology, and it reveals again this tragedy. And yeah, you know, this is going to be a long talk, because I'm seeing from what I'm gathering now in my mind that maybe I should do like both Nicola and Paul here, because they were partners. I mean, and he knows what happened, I think, because he was the one who knew her the most, having been with her for what, 12 years, having had with her 2 children. Yeah, Paul will be the one who really knows her intimately for the longest time, apart from her parents, which is another, you know, it's all, her parents and her relationship with her parents. It's another whole topic, because, and with her sister, yeah, because I feel like she didn't really have a honest or easy relationship with her parents, with her family. That's my impression from the pictures I have seen, and from the demeanor of the parents and the sister. Is like, I mean, also the fact that in the family appeal they weren't with Paul. Paul wasn't there with them. So for me, that is like a huge red flag, you know. From my relationship sense, the fact that her family, like her parents and her sister, appear separately from Paul, that tells me quite a lot of things, you know. It's like, I don't think her parents approved of Paul. I don't know about her sister. Rumors say that she and Paul had a relationship even before he, you know, started up with Nicola. I don't know about that. I really don't. Some people say that he also had a relationship with Emma before Nicola, and I really don't know. I haven't seen that information confirmed, so I cannot say. What I can say is what I can gather from, you know, the digital information, okay, from the interviews. And the fact that both families were apart tell me that her parents didn't approve of Paul. I don't think they did. I really don't. And bear in mind that Nicola's father, he's a well-to-do man. he, I think he's more than capable of providing, you know, an easy life for his children, okay, Nicola and Louise, because he has this long-standing company. He lives in a really beautiful house with really beautiful cars, and I just think that he's well-to-do, and he could have provided Nicola, and maybe he did, you know, Nicola with he may have provided her with, you know, he may have helped her through her financial life, I think. Especially, you know, I mean, let's see, Nikki what we know is that she was married briefly, I think, to another guy, and then, you know, she met Paul when she was, what, 33, something like that. So, you know, she had been married before, and that marriage obviously didn't work. So then I see a pattern, you know, a little pattern, not like a huge detailed pattern, but a little glimpse of how Nicola had problems forming relationships with men. Then she met Paul. I think she met him in a bar, in a pub, and maybe Paul was singing, because there's a couple pictures of him like singing in a band, in a pub like type of place. And I think you know, maybe she met him there, you know, and he was always, you know, if when you learn that Paul used to sing, you see that he's someone who, he likes art, he likes, you know, music, he likes, you know, artistic expression. And remember, his father, Paul's father, he is an artist. I don't know about what was his previous occupation, but I know he's an artist now. And so I think Paul had more of a artistic background, and Nicola had more of a conservative, like workaholic maybe, parents, always, like, you know, thinking about the company, you know, people who are business people tend to be, you know, workaholics. And you know, I think they are old school, you know, their look and their act old school, Nicola's parents. So, you know, I think they didn't approve of Paul, because Paul was he was artistic, and, you know, he seemed maybe unreliable on the job front. Maybe they saw him as a little bit of a deadbeat. I don't know. It's just my impression. And looking at their charts, Nikki has definitely had problems with relationships with her fallen Venus. Yeah. She was too perfectionist. She was too analytic. You know, Virgo is a very critical, analytical, cerebral sign. So that is why Venus is not comfortable there. Is not happy there, because Venus doesn't want to look at all the details and all the routines of every day and perfection and, you know, this is not right, this is not right. No, Venus likes to lay down and enjoy life. That's Venus, that it's balance, it's harmony. And and Virgo, it's a sign that analyzes everything to the tiniest detail. To no end. Is like all the time. Is the way Virgo works. It's very analytic, and maybe it's also very analytical, critical. Like Virgo is, you know, because they are perfectionists and detail oriented, they're very critical when they see something that doesn't conform to their view, you know. So there we have a problem, okay? Like bad relationships. And also her Mars, which is planet of action, is the planet of self-preservation. It's like the me planet, you know, it's the warrior planet. It's the male counterpart to Venus, right? Because we need those two poles, the masculine and the feminine. We need them to be as tight as we can. We need them to be as harmonized as we can in order to integrate our more aggressive side and selfish side with our more relationship, you know, and with our more feminine side, which, you know, tends to, you know, the female side is more receptive, is the bearer of children, you know, is the fertile sign. And it's the beautiful sign. It's the sign of, you know, everything beauty, everything creation, everything like harmonious. And Mars and everything harmonious and diplomatic, you know, like getting on well with people. And so you have to harmonize that in your daily life. Otherwise, people who are too Martian are too aggressive, and they have, you know, they have an overdevelopment of their masculine side, and they have their feminine side underdeveloped. And conversely, people who are too Venusian, you know, they have their feminine side too overblown, or when, you know, when it's not out of balance, you know, because they lack the Martian side, you know, maybe because their Mars is debilitated. That can also create many problems. And with Nicola, it's both. I mean, both her feminine pole or feminine half or feminine side is debilitated because her Venus is in Virgo, and also her masculine side, which is very important for self-preservation, so you don't get run over by people, you know. Also that sign, that the Mars, the action, the more me sign, me planet, her Mars is in detriment. Sorry, is in his fall, as well as his, I mean, both her Venus and her Mars are in fall, which is the unhappiest signs that they could be in, you know. So Mars, she has Mars in Cancer, and Mars in Cancer is, you know, is at his most unhappy. because Mars is exalted in the sign of Capricorn, which is the opposite sign to Cancer. Mars in Capricorn is like this organized army of power. So you are very self-sufficient, very organized. You don't only use brute power, but you are also intelligent. But then Mars in the opposite sign of Capricorn, Cancer, which is where Nikki has her Mars, it's, in Cancer Mars is totally useless. Imagine a warrior who is totally disorganized, and all touchy-feely and because Cancer is also the mother. So yeah, it relates to the mother, Cancer, and Mars there is problematic. Her Mars sign her Mars in Cancer is like also very passive aggressive, because Mars, to flow naturally, he has to be aggressive, but in a controlled way, right? But here in Cancer, he's passive aggressive, and that's not good, because it's passive, it's internalized. All that aggression, that healthy aggression, that you need to channel in your Mars sign, here in Cancer is totally internalized. So it's like you want to act, you want to self-preserve, you want to move forward, but you can't. You're always dragged down by these touchy-feely things, this always like being easily hurt. It's a fallen Mars, so it could be also very aggressive, disproportionately aggressive. So, I'm thinking about, and this is all, one hypothesis, okay? A Mars in Cancer can make a person, because it makes them passive-aggressive, and instead of asserting themselves, they just cry about it, or they lash out in inappropriate ways. I think that maybe she was the one causing all this violence in the house. Okay, not only her, because it takes two to tango, but I could say that she had anger management problems, and that derives directly from her Mars in Cancer. Okay, I can't help but see it, which doesn't mean that she was the aggressor, not necessarily. Maybe her aggressive side never came out. Maybe it's like I said, she just internalized. Maybe she was the punch bag, because Mars in Cancer, it's in a very bad sign for Mars. It's like Mars in Cancer is like, instead of action, it's inaction. So maybe if there was a problem in the house, with her partner, maybe she just didn't do anything. Maybe he just cried. Maybe she just, didn't say anything. Maybe he just gave him the silent treatment, which is what you can sense from the CCTV footage from Paul's house. You can see that she is you can see that she appears a little bit aggressive, you know, but also silent. She's not speaking, she's not looking at Paul, she doesn't acknowledge him. She seems pissed off. She seems really angry. And you know, so that's, maybe they were arguing. Probably they were arguing because, you know, there were rows and arguments before, and maybe that was her way of communicating her utter frustration at Paul or at her own life, you know, like to lash out but to keep it in. It's like this, it's very like confusing, you know. It's because it's like very contradictory. It's like you give the silent treatment when you should be confrontational, and you are confrontational when you should give the silent treatment. This is what I'm talking about with Mars in Cancer. It's like it's, you know, it's unpredictable, because also Cancer, which is the moon rules the sign of Cancer, is the natural sign for the moon. Cancer, it's the moon, it's naturally very the nature of the moon is always changing, okay? Because the moon feels okay in an environment of, you know, fluidity. But Mars, it's the contrary. Mars feels the best at the organized, structured Capricorn, okay? But in Cancer, Mars is like a moon Mars. It's very susceptible, like I said, very touchy-feeling, and also it's a very maternal Mars, you know, which is weird for Mars. It's very it's a changing Mars. It's because it's ruled by the sign of the moon, Cancer. It's a changing. It's always like, it's like very unstable, and Mars is very dangerous when in an stable sign. Okay, so that's what I think about Nikki's Mars and Venus. So if you add up, if you see that, observe that her two sides, her natural masculine side and her natural feminine side are they are utterly imbalanced, then you can see how her whole life was imbalanced. And we're talking about inner self, okay, inner, like inside of her. It must have been a very difficult life, very difficult. I mean, I really do feel sorry for her, because with these placements, I understand why something happened to her, you know, something violent, or, you know, something self-inflicted or inflicted from the outside, you know. It's either ways, it's a violent thing, you know, what happened to her. So, you know, we still don't know how she died. So what if at the inquest they say, oh, she had an aneurysm, or she had like I don't know, like a fugue state, and she just walked and fell into the river, you know. It could have happened that. I mean, I get her, because, you know, I am also a woman of a similar age as Nicola. So, I mean, Nicola and me were born in the same generation, very close to each other. So I get her. And when I am able to see these astrological placements in her chart, it's like I understand her even more. And with her yin and yang, feminine, masculine side in utter imbalance, and then you see her sun, Libra. The sun is not happy in Libra, not naturally. Okay, the sun is also in his sign of his fall. The sun in Libra, it's in its fall, because the sun is exalted in the sign of Aries, okay, because it's where he shines the most happily, but in Libra the sun is very debilitated, okay. That doesn't mean that all Libras don't have a chance. It's not that. It's the sum of the parts. It's like when you see the whole thing, But Libras, they can be either, because when they have good placements, Libras can be very, very enduring, okay? They are also very smart. They are naturally smart, okay? And but in by itself, the sun in Libra, he's not happy, okay? And if you add, he has the feminine and the masculine unhappy, and her sun unhappy as well. Then you see, okay, here is a huge imbalance of the archetypes, right? Of the basic astrological or psycho-astrological archetypes. I could go on so much longer, but now I have to get into Paul, which I was going to get first into Paul, but then Nicola snatched me away, because she's the victim, she's the one who is no longer with us. So yeah, at least Paul, he's still alive. He still has a chance in life. He still has the chance to look after his girls, whereas for Nicola, she can do anything. All the years she could have lived, and and see her daughters grow up and all that, which is all. If you have children, it's like all you want is for your children to see your children grow up healthily and mature, and and have a good life, and you want them to see grow. It's a natural thing for a mother to want to see your children grow and mature into wonderful human beings, and she won't be able. She's not able to do that anymore. It's a tragedy. With Paul, he has a chance at life. Like he said, well, I am obviously here. Like, I'm still here. It's like I'm surviving. And he will survive. He has a strong, even though he also is a Libra, like Nikki. So from that I see, okay, he's got a naturally debilitated sun, because it is also in the sign of Libra. Then you see, okay, he also has an unhappy Venus, which is his female side, okay? Venus, it's Paul's female side, which is the unnatural side, so to speak. Because he's a man, he is more, because he's hormonally ruled by testosterone, which is Mars, is Martian in nature, okay? But, okay, in Nicola, both her natural side, which is feminine, and his male side were debilitated, plus her sun debilitated. In Paul's case, you have his sun debilitated, because it's a Libra as well, and you have his Mars, which is his male side, it's in Scorpio, and Mars is natural in Scorpio. He feels good in Scorpio, because in traditional astrology, Mars is the natural ruler of Aries and Scorpio. Now in modern astrology, Mars is, the ruler of Mars is Pluto. Sorry. What am I saying? Oh God. Mars rules just Aries, whereas in traditional astrology, Mars used to rule, or whatever, Aries and Scorpio. But I still, I like traditional astrology. So for me, a Mars in Scorpio, it's a strong Mars. It's a very fierce Mars. It has a tenacity about it. It's very survival. It's like Mars in Scorpio will survive anything, It's survival, self-preservation. Even if because Scorpio it's all about death, but also self-preservation. It's about survival. So his Mars in Scorpio is very strong, naturally, just by sign, okay? And I have met men with Mars in Scorpio, and they just don't give up. And they can be quite dark. They have these dark impulses, But let's say that, okay, his Mars, his natural male side, it's okay, it's strong. And then let's see his female side. His Venus, it's in Scorpio, which, again, Venus is not unhappy in Scorpio. Is not happy in Scorpio. She's very unhappy there. Because Scorpio is the opposite sign of one of Venus's natural rulerships, which is Taurus. So in Scorpio, Venus, it's out of her depth, in Taurus, Venus is like this, have you seen the Empress card? She's like this, enjoying nature, enjoying all the good stuff in life, she's just enjoying like fruits, and she has babies, and she's surrounded by nature, but it's very structured, because Taurus, it's the structure of the earth. It's like it's the survival of the creation. Taurus is a fixed sign, so it never changes. Its nature doesn't change. So Venus likes it there in Taurus, because Taurus, it's nature, and Venus loves nature. And where nature is fixed, it's like an ongoing feast of the senses, and Venus loves that. But when Venus is in its opposite sign of Scorpio, she's in detriment. She's uncomfortable there, because Venus doesn't want to know about survival. Venus doesn't want to know about death. Venus doesn't want to transform all the time, to be like a, like in a video game, when you die and you are born again, you die and you're born again and you become stronger or whatever. She doesn't like that. She likes the calm, it's like she likes the unchanging beauty of nature and the unchanging nurture of nature. So in Scorpio, it's like, I always have this image. It's like, in Snow White, the movie Snow White, when she's thrown out of her house and she enters this dark, creepy forest at night, and she's terrified. That's an archetypical Venus in Scorpio. Or it could be like a moon, when the moon is in fall, for example, if the moon is in Capricorn, or if the moon is in Scorpio. I would say more like the moon, because the moon in Scorpio is also in its fall. It's very unhappy there. So it's like a natural archetype for, I would say, Moon and Venus in Scorpio. They are not natural placements for them. Okay, so Paul has this twisted sense of his female side is twisted. Okay, it's full of fears. It's full of Scorpio is very possessive, so maybe he was possessive towards Nikki and towards everyone in his life. Controlling, yes, because Scorpio is about control, yes. It's about also research, studying from afar. It's like maybe he was like maybe he controlled her, or he was possessive of her, and or maybe it was the opposite. Because he was so afraid with that position, he could go the opposite, way. He could be like, because he's so afraid, he's so uncomfortable, he just gets cold. Maybe he gets detached from the relationship when things get rough, when the path gets rocky in the relationship. Maybe he just detaches or attaches even more. That's the thing with fallen planets. Okay, it's like it's either it's very extreme, because when you feel out of your depth, when you are stranded and you are fighting for your survival, and you are in a totally unfriendly atmosphere, you will do whatever you need to survive in it, either by being too aggressive or too passive. So you don't get the middle ground, you don't get the harmony, you get the extremes. And as we well know, extremes in life are detrimental. They are bad for you. That is why the middle road, it's always the wisest, is the road of the wise, of the archetypical wizard, It's like the road of the archetypical Gandalf. It's the road of the wise man, of the wise woman. Not the extremes. okay? So when you have planets that are either in its fall or in its detriment, they are both unhappy, okay? They are going to conduct themselves in extremes because they feel that out of their, totally out of their comfort zone. Yeah, they don't work comfortably there. So I can see why this could have been a very toxic couple, maybe when they started sexually was very good, because when you have toxicity, the sex is very good, okay? And because it's like those dark places, those extremes, it's very it's very like a fantasy life, and you're living a fantasy, but then you have to face reality, because a fantasy never ever quits. I mean, for example, for extreme personalities like psychopaths, they have these recurrent deviant fantasies, and they can't do anything about it. It's the way they are wired, and it's the correlation is it's like that. It's like maybe they had these weird fantasies, these weird fixations about each other, but when reality set in, it became worse, because reality set in, and they discovered maybe that as they aged and their children, children are a lot of work, maybe all those responsibilities wore them down, okay? It was too much for them, and then all the extreme toxicity reared its ugly head in their relationship, and maybe we are where we are now, okay? Because every relationship, no matter how toxic, they always have this honeymoon period. Sometimes that honeymoon period lasts many years, okay? Because, you like your quirks, you like the others, weird things, it excites you, it's funny, it's weird, it's like different, so... but then, as time goes by, those quirks become liabilities for you, okay? They are no longer funny, they no longer excite you, they actually, they frustrate you, they anger you, and you become disillusioned with the relationship. Especially when those ugly traits from those fallen planets in their charts, when they start to face reality, right? They didn't quite, maybe if they had gone to therapy, maybe they did, I don't know. But even though, maybe they should, if they had done more about it, maybe they had sought help when there was time still, But it didn't happen like that. They were arguing. There were alleged mental health issues, alcohol issues, rows, silent treatment, passive aggressiveness, and God knows what else inside those four walls. I would say there were like, you know, horrible arguments, like snide comments, then followed by silent treatments, and it's like I think they're a toxic cycle set in, you know. And maybe, I think Paul, you know, Venus in Scorpio guys tend to be very like very sexual, but in a non-healthy way, okay? That's my view. They're either too sexual that they seek sexual companionship outside of the marriage or outside of the relationship, and I think that may have happened, you know. Paul used to love to sing in the pub. He liked his rock and roll persona, and we all know that, you know, rock and roll personas, you know, are always in affairs, and with, you know, the groupies, the girls or the boys, you know, it's, I think he fantasized about that, you know, about being this hunk whom women adored and wanted to bed him, you know, like as if he was, I don't know, Mick Jagger or something. But yeah, that didn't happen. So because, you know, he became what, like an electrician, or sorry, like an engineer in electrical design, which I have no idea what that is. Is that a glorified way of saying electrician, or is that really a thing? I stand to be corrected. Because nowadays there are many glorified titles, you know, I mean, it happens, so. And I think he maybe was a little bit of a philanderer, like a womanizer, and it exploded, you know, because obviously Nicola wasn't going to put up with it. No one does. And unless they are a punch bag. Was Nicola a punch bag for Paul? Was Paul this womanizer who did anything he wanted while she suffered in silence or whatever? I don't know, but I see all these toxic traits just from looking at the astrology. Yes? And from pairing that with the footage of Paul and the photos of Nicola and her demeanor in photographs, in her posts, because, you know, I get a feeling from her. And being a woman, being a mother of the same generation as hers, is like I can connect better with her. And with Paul, I have all this footage from Paul, which is not enough, of course. That is why this is just like a very wide view of them as you know, as a couple. But Paul is, I think he is a survivor. I think it won't be long until he, you know, gets another companionship. And I also feel I don't know, his work. Is that why he has so many dodgy, faltering companies in his name? Is that why? Is it because he never wanted to be to is that because he didn't want to work as whatever he seems to be working as, you know? Is that because he wanted to be an artist? Because his father is an artist, you know? Did Paul like inherit that artistic gene from his father? I assume so, because, you know, those kind of traits are passed from generation to generation. So yeah, maybe Paul wanted to work as something else, but he had to, I don't know, I sense like a frustration there as well, like something that is imbalanced. So yeah, how much have I been rambling on? 1 hour 5 minutes. Yeah, so maybe I will speak further on this. Maybe I will speak on Emma in another podcast. Now it's time for me to check out. So if this was interesting to you, please like, comment. You can email me questions and observations, and you can subscribe. And, you know, if you want to support me financially because you love my content, you can tip me at coffee.com/gritty. So that's all for now, folks. And if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. May God bless you. Bye bye.